get more on this now. Dr. Pieter Taljaard is the CEO of GrainSA. Dr. Taljaard, good afternoon to you. You represent grain farmers. Electricity prices are going to go up by over 18%. What's this going to do to your members?
No, definitely, especially a significant portion of the grain in South Africa is produced under irrigated circumstances. And it will directly affect their production cost and having a detrimental effect on their profitability. And that on top of all the higher and rising input costs that we have received, if you think about diesel per se, fertilizer that went up significantly over the past years, and we haven't really seen it come down also because of the impact of the exchange rate, and then also crop production. So everything is just up, and the profitability is really under pressure for grain production, especially on the irrigation.
I presume when you talk about irrigation, you need to pump water to get it to the point where you can start to run it down a pipe to water your plants. It's the pump that needs the electricity?
Exactly, yeah. So there's in many of these larger irrigation schemes, and also in many parts of the country there's irrigation, so it works on pressure systems, and without the irrigation, with the electricity you can't do it. But the problem is with this on and off, the challenge is really that these systems take a lot of energy to get up to a level where they are running on the correct pressure, and each time it goes off you need to restart. On top of that, what happens with this up and down, typically sometimes farmers experience electrical surges in these rural area. The maintenance cost of electric appliances and the components have increased since we really started with load shedding with about 40%. So it's all the time electricians on the farms, pumps that burning motors, conductors that's not and breakers. So they have a huge impact on their production cost and maintenance.
Some industries can manage to get up backup mechanisms or run generators. I imagine it's quite difficult for farmers to do that, actually.
In some cases, a farmer can do it, but for irrigation, especially if you talk about these bigger schemes, it's simply not feasible. Because in many cases, it's well known that a generator to generate the same amount of power will cost you easily 10 times what it would have been at the normal prices, and that's already significant. But it's just not feasible. There's no way that you can run a generator to run irrigation pumps. There's not enough profit in the system to capture that additional cost.
Could some farmers literally go bust? They might have to stop production.
Well, at this stage, when farmers planted, if we talk about the summer crop now, farmers didn't plan for these high stages, and farmers are always optimistic and believe in the best. So they did plant full out and plan for a good season. I mean, we also had forecasts of good rains, and now in a critical period, in addition to this heat wave, it's where plants are really starting to need the water, and then you have this high levels of evaporation and absence of rain for a few weeks. And now you need to pump. So what's going to happen is they will have a crop failure here now, and some crops have already failed, and that means that they will lose a lot of money. To plant a hectare of irrigated maize today cost you anywhere in the area of 30 to 35,000 rand per hectare, and that's just direct inputs. That's seed and fertilizer, crop protection products, and so forth. It's not your overhead cost. So they stand to lose a significant amount of that, and in the future, how will they continue if they can't make a profit this year, or even recover the input cost that they use? So definitely in the future it will influence farmers' ability to plant under irrigation, and the scary thing about irrigation in terms of the grains is it's the irrigation that really supply us with the stability. In drier years where we have lower production, it's the irrigation that gives us that stabilizing factor. When we are surplus, by comparing the previous season where we are a net exporter of grains, it's a fortunate position and a well-earned source of foreign income, of currency that we earn, we export, and it's really the irrigation that we export. But very easily it can transfer into a shortage. But the bigger crisis now for the shorter term is we sit with enough raw materials to produce food, and if there's not enough electricity, we can't convert the raw material into edible products. And that's the challenge. We can all of a sudden sit with maize in the country, but not enough maize meal because the millers can't mill it. And this goes for all the other industries. If you think about livestock and poultry production and pig production, each industry has its major challenge with this electricity, yes.
As I understand it, there's a particular impact, of course, of maize and grain, because what happens to the price of maize affects the entire agricultural food chain. In other words, if the price of grain goes up, as I understand it, the price of meat goes up too. Is that right?
Definitely, because meat and milk and eggs and chicken all use a lot of grains and oilseeds. So, to produce a kilogram of meat, you need roughly about 7 to 8 kilograms of feedstocks, which maize forms a significant part together with soy oil cake. So, yes, it definitely influenced that. But the bigger challenge is if we are moving in terms of maize, if we just think our main staple, which is maize meal in this country, if we move from being a net exporter, so we have surplus to export, to a net importer, meaning that we don't have sufficient supplies and we need to import, that can increase the price of local maize delivered in Gauteng. Because remember, if you import, you still need to bring the product from the coastal areas inland to where the majority of the product is consumed in Gauteng. That can increase that price of that product with about 54%. And if you think on the knock-on effect, the price of mealies is really about 50% of the price of maize meal. So that will translate in an increase in the price of maize meal to the people that are really living on the breadline with about 27%. Just moving from a net exporter to a net importer will increase the price of maize meal inland with about 27%. So that's detrimental. Then you haven't even calculated or considered the increasing prices of transportation and fuel and so forth. So, it's really a big challenge in terms of our food security, because big portion of food security is the affordability of food. And that's the big main concern. Can people afford this food? And we all know as consumers how hard it is. And it's a challenging situation.
Dr. Pieter Taljaard, thank you. The CEO of GrainSA South Africa shows you the problems there, shows you the difficulties as well.